What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Swift video. In today's video, we're going to be building an Uber pickup style app where we open the app and we have this map and then we have this where to panel down here. And we're going to be focusing on geocoding, which is the process of, I can go ahead and type in a string in here. And if I go ahead and hit enter, it's going to resolve the location. And when I tap it, not only will it take the name and get the address that I want, but it'll actually zoom in on the map here and kind of show me my destination. So this is a very minimal precursor of what the Uber app is doing, or any ride sharing app for that matter, or navigation app. But we're going to take a look at building this. So if you're excited, first and foremost, destroy that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Helps out the channel a lot. A lot of you guys watch every video through but don't hit subscribe, so start off by hitting subscribe for daily Swift uploads. That said, get excited, get pumped to open up Xcode. Let's talk about some location and geocoding. Quick pause before the video. This video is brought to you by iOSacademy.io. Head on over to check out the newly launched TikTok and Swift UI courses. Learn to build world-class professional apps in a fraction of the time, quickly and efficiently. That said, let's get back to the video. All right, let's begin by opening up Xcode, and we're going to create a brand new project right here. We're going to want to stick with the app template under the iOS tab. And let's go ahead and call this Uber, let's spell that right, Uber location search. Make sure, of course, your language is Swift, your lifecycle UI kit, and your interface is Storyboard. Go ahead and continue. Let's save this guy to our desktop. And before we do anything, let me expand my window here. Jump into my view controller. I'm going to bump up the font size so y'all can see it nice and large. And we're also going to go ahead and hit the run button over here to get our app loaded to our simulator. So cool, let's talk about what we need to do. So we're going to need an object that's a dedicated object to handle all of this location business for us, which is basically we're going to enter a string in a text and it needs to convert it or try to resolve it to location. So let's go ahead and create a new file here. It's going to be a brand new file, Swift file, and I like just calling it location manager. Nice and simple, easy to follow. Go ahead and create that. Now, the other thing we need to do here is you saw in that demo in the very beginning that we have that floating panel component, that has the text fields in it and it has the table view once we, search for locations. Now that should be its own controller just to keep our code nice and organized and proper design. So we're going to create a new view controller and I'm going to go ahead and call this search view controller just like that. And let's see, I think I just saw our simulator. Yep, we got our simulator here. It's in dark mode, I believe. Yep. So the next thing we want to do is actually bring in a cocoapod to use that floating panel thing. So we could build it from scratch, but since its focus is on location stuff, we're going to bring it in via cocoapods, but not to worry, we're doing all the location stuff ourselves. So let's go ahead and open up terminal, and we're going to cd into our project. If you don't know what cocoapods are or don't have them installed, I've got a separate video on this, so definitely go take a look at that. We're going to open up the pod file here, and if I'm not mistaken, the pod is called floating panel, oh so creatively. I'm going to go ahead and run pod install after we add that in there, and just like that, it should bring it in fairly quickly. It's a pretty lightweight pod. And now we can open up the project.xc workspace. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit the run button to get it compiling because it's going to take a little longer since we brought in a library. So give that a few seconds to get its life together and we'll dig straight into it. So actually, while this guy's building over here, let's get rid of all these warnings. We can actually, let's do our location manager stuff first. So we need to start by importing CoreLocation, which is Apple's framework to handle location stuff. I'm going to create a class called Location Manager. It's going to inherit from NSObject, and we're going to want a shared instance of it. This is kind of the singleton pattern that we want to use, so we don't have to instantiate multiple versions of it. We also want this guy to conform to we actually don't need a location manager delegate now that I think about it, but we will need a manager, which is a CL location manager. let's see, CLOcation, let me spell that right, manager, there it is. And all we want is one function on here that our view controller should call when the user, types in text and presses, continue. And that is going to be find locations with query, which will be a string. And the completion handler of this is going to be an escaping closure that's going to return to us an array of different locations. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create a view model that we're going to actually use in our view controller. And this model is just going to be a simple location. It's going to have a title on it. And this is what we're going to render, on the UI to show the user. But then we also want to hang on to the coordinates of that location, coordinates. And this is how we're going to plot the annotation, the little pin that you see on, a map. So this is a CL location coordinates 2D, just like that. And in the completion handler down here, we can go ahead and actually say this returns an array of location models. Boom, just like that. And we'll get to this body in just a moment. Looks like our app compiled here. So let me go ahead and move the search controller. Let me move both of these guys up a little bit. But let's go ahead and start putting together our UI. So on the main view controller, we're going to want to have a map. So I'm going to say map view is a MK map view. And before we do that, we need to import mapkit, which has the map view in it. So we're going to create that just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and add it as a subview. And we also want to give it a nice frame to take up the entirety of the screen. So I'm going to say map.frame equals view.bounds. Go ahead and hit Command R to build and run. And you're going to see the map on the entirety of the screen, just like that. Now the next thing we want is a nice title up here. Now we're not in a navigation controller, so we'll need to jump into the main storyboard. And once we're in here, we're just going to embed our controller in a navigation controller. If you're not familiar with navigation controllers, take a look at my prior videos on it, but we'll select the controller there, come out to the toolbar and go to editor. We're going to go to embed in, and I'm going to select navigation controller just like that. And we're going to select this bar up here, the navigation bar, open up the attributes inspector, and I'm going to check this box at the top, which is prefers large titles, just so it gives us a large title format, which I think, frankly, looks a little nicer. And then back here in the view controller, I'm going to give this a title of Uber, just like that. So if we go ahead and hit Command R to build and run, we should see a nice title overlaying our map now. So looking pretty darn good. The next thing we want is to bring in that floating panel component. And we're going to want to start by importing the cocoapod that we went ahead and installed in our project, which is called floating panel. And we can just do this at the bottom of view did load. We're going to first create the floating panel. So that is a floating panel, just like that. Now in the panel, you want to go ahead and set a, let's see, something's off here, floating panel. Go ahead and hit Command B, make sure it's compiling. It is apparently not compiling. Let's see, cannot call value of non-function type, module floating panel. I think it's called floating panel controller, actually. Floating panel controller, yep, that's what we're looking for. We're gonna say panel.set content view controller. And this is basically what content should go into that floating panel, and that's gonna be our search controller. That's that empty controller that we just created in the beginning there. It's totally empty right now. And then finally, we're going to say panel, and we want to add this panel to a parent. So we're going to say add a panel to parent self, just like that. And then before we give it a run to see our panel, let's come into our search controller and let's do some basic setup in here. So I'm going to get rid of all these comments that nobody ever wants. And let's talk about what we want in here. So in this panel, we need three things. We need a label at the top to basically tell the user, where do you want to go, enter your address. We need a field to actually enter in an address. And then we also want a table view that's going to populate with our actual results once we search for a place. So let's do it. So the first thing we want, like I said, is a label. So we're going to say label is a UI label. I'm going to create it with this simple anonymous closure pattern. If you're not familiar with this pattern, I've got a separate video on this as well, but it just allows you to configure your elements, in line in this closure style format. We're going to give this label a nice font of system fonts with a size and a weight. So I want this one, we'll say 24, and I'm going to say semi-bold. Hopefully that'll be nice and large. We're going to add the label just like that. And we're also going to need to override view did layout subviews, call super view did layout subviews before we assign some frames. So I'm going to say the labels, first of all, we're going to say size to fit. Then we're going to give the label a frame. So I'm going to say CG rect 10 from the left. So let's say 10 from the top. Label.frame.size.width. And then label.frame.size.height. And we already called size to fit, so the labels width and height have been automatically computed. Let's go ahead and just set a background color. I'm going to say the background color here is going to be system background and give it a run and Command R. Let's make sure we at least see our floating panel. All right, looks pretty good. We got our little handle thing. We can actually drag it up like so and drag it back down. I don't like that it's black. It should be the secondary system color. So let's go ahead and fix that. Add the text field and hook it up to our location stuff. So let's make this secondary system background. Awesome. All right, let's start doing our fields. So we're going to say private let not label. We want a field, which is a UI text field. And in this field, we're just going to create a field and assign some properties just to stylize it a little bit. So we're going to say return field. I'm going to say field dot placeholder. This is going to be enter destination. We're going to say field dot layer dot corner radius. We're going to say is 8, so it's nice rounded corners. I'm also going to give it a background color, and this is going to be tertiary. This should be background color. I'm going to give it tertiary. Let's see if I can spell this. Tertiary system background is what I'm looking for, which is slightly lighter than secondary here, so we'll still see it. And let's see, we also want to give it a left view, so we have some padding in the field. This is going to be a UI view, CG rect right here. Man, I have a lot of typos today. Xcode autocomplete really doesn't want to cooperate. So we're going to say 10 wide and, I don't know, 50 tall. And we're going to say field left view mode is going to be always. We're going to go ahead and add this as a sub view like that. And then we just want to go ahead and give it a frame here. So once again, I am going to say the X is 10. The Y is now going to be, so we want to say this is 20 plus the label frame size height. So it's 10 points below the label. This will be view frame size width minus 20. And the height here will be 50, just like that. Now, when the user taps in here and hits enter, we want to go ahead and dismiss the keyboard and start the location search. So we need to implement the UI text field delegate. And the delegate function we care about is should return. First, we're going to say return true. The very first thing we want to do is dismiss the keyboard. So I'm going to say field dot resign first responder. Then we're going to say if there is text in the field and the text is not empty, we can go ahead and we can try to get locations. So how do we do that? We're going to say location manager shared, and we want to find locations with the text. And this completion is going to give us a collection of locations back. And in here, we would just go ahead and update our table view, which we have yet to create. So let's see. Let me hit Command B, make sure everything's still building. I'm going through this kind of quickly. We're going to do a recap at the end, so not to worry. Let's go ahead and create a very basic table view. It'll be a UI table view. Whoops, UI table view, just like that. And in here, all we want to do is create it and register a single cell to it. All right, let's create it, and we're going to return it down here. I'm also going to say register a cell. It's going to be a basic UI table view cell.self with an ID of cell. We want to go ahead and add this guy as a subview as well. So table view, and we want to assign its data source and its delegate like so, so we can not only provide the data, but also handle interactions on the cell. So here I'm going to say table view delegate and UI table view data source. And there are three functions we care about here. Number of rows, we're going to return 1 for now. Cell for row at index path, where we're going to dequeue a reusable cell. So we're going to say dequeue reusable cell with identifier. The ID is cell. The index path is going to be index path. We're going to return cell at the bottom of that function. And the last function for the table view is did select row at index path. And first we're going to deselect what we've tapped with an animation. And basically here we want to notify map controller to show pin at selected place. So cool, we've done quite a bit. Let's see what else we want. So we want to hold a collection of location models in this controller because that's how we're going to drive our table views content. So we're going to say locations is a array of location models. Number of rows is going to be locations.count. The cell is going to say, it's going to be configured with location. Its text will be the nth location in our array.title. We're also going to go ahead and on this text label, I'm going to say number of rows will be, rather number of lines will be 0. That way our label, if it's long, it's going to go ahead and line wrap. And then finally, when you go ahead and select a given location in the table view, we want to pull out the coordinates of what you picked because we're going to notify the map to go ahead and plot this on the map so we can get it out of the locations array from the nth position and then get the coordinates off of it. So hit Command V, make sure everything's looking good. Looks like we have no build errors, which is fantastic. The next thing that we want to go ahead and do in this location manager function that we called here is we're just going to assign locations to location, and we're going to say self.tableview reload data. Now we want to do this on the main thread because we're doing a UI operation. Hit Command B. And let's see what I forgot here. I forgot to give the table view a frame, so let me go ahead and do that. We are going to say the frame here is a CG rect. X is 0. Y is going to be, well, let's skip Y for a moment. We'll say the width is the frame size width. And the height here is going to be the entirety of this controller subtracting the table Y. So we just need to calculate this table Y. So this table Y should be basically the bottom of the text field. So the table Y will be field.origin, rather .frame.origin .y plus field.frame.size.heights plus we'll say, let's say +5, so it gives us a little bit of padding. And that should be good to show our, that should be actually it for all of our UI in this controller actually. So let's go back to our location manager and let's talk about how do you actually convert a string to different locations. There's actually a tool inside of location manager, and actually we don't even need this manager thing. It's actually a different object. It's called a geocoder. We're going to say let geocoder is a CL geocoder. And on the geocoder, you can say geocoder, you want to geocode an address string. And there's a couple different variants where you can pass in a region or locale or preferred locale, but I'm just going to do the simplest one where the first parameter is the string that you want to basically search for or kind of geocode. And the second thing here is a completion handler that gives you an array of place marks and optionally an error back. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to say guard let places equals places, error equals nil, else we will return here because something has gone wrong. I am also going to go ahead and in here, we're going to say completion with an empty array. We didn't find any places. Otherwise, we want to go ahead and convert these places to our location models. Now, what the heck is a place? So we're going to first say places.compactMap. A place essentially is a CL place mark, which has things like the place's coordinates as well as the place's like address string. So it has things like the locality, the street address, the administrative region, et cetera, et cetera. So first we're gonna say let result is a location model, which takes a string and a coordinate. The coordinate will be $0.coordinates, I believe. Let's see, coordinates, apparently not. We're gonna say $0.location.coordinates. And it looks like that's optional, so I'm gonna come back into our model and make this guy optional as well, the CL location 2D. Now the next thing you wanna go ahead and do is construct the name of the place. I'm gonna call this name. We're going to return the result to our closure. And our name is going to be a string that we're going to construct one by one. So we're going to first say if $0 dot, let's see what's going on here. So let me go ahead and actually say place in just to make it explicit so we don't have to use this $0 nonsense. That's going to be place. This is going to be an array of locations we're getting back. At the bottom here, we're going to return these locations, these models rather, to the caller. And in here, we're going to construct the actual name string. So we're going to say if let street is, let's see what we have on the place. I don't know if we have a street, but we will find out in just a moment. So there is administrative area, areas of interest. Let's see. So we are going to definitely want the region, the country. We don't care about inland water. I guess we can go ahead and grab the name. That's probably useful. So I'm going to say name plus equals the, let's go ahead and call this location name, just like that. And we're going to want a few more of these. I'm just going to copy and paste it. Next one we're going to say is admin region. We're going to plus equal here a comma plus admin region. Next one will be locality. So we're going to, once again, we're going to plus equal a comma and a locality and just go ahead and change these respectively to locality. And here we're going to want administrative, I guess it was administrative area and not region. I could have swore it was region. Looks like we have a CL region, so I'm just going to use the administrative area instead. And then finally, let me just tack on the country here. We'll see if the string is formatted correctly, but I believe it should be. So we'll say country is country, and this one is we're going to tack on the country. And for good measure, to help you guys see the other parts of the data that's available, we'll just go ahead and print out the place as well. And let me print it out with a line break so we can see it more easily in the console. So we'll go ahead and do that. And go ahead and hit Command B, and you should be good to go. Back in our search controller, I think we already hooked this up, but once we call this function and get a result back, we want to go ahead and update our table view, which it looks like we're already doing. And when we tap on one of these, we want to update our map. So we haven't hooked this up yet, but we wrote a lot of code. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the play button, and I want to see something working first before we move forward. So we are going to try it out. So cool, so we have this here. The one thing that I'm not liking here is our table view cells backgrounds are the system primary color. So let's go ahead and adjust that because that's not looking too great. So I'm gonna say the background of the table view itself is secondary system background. And we're also gonna do that for the cell here. We're gonna say the cell's content view. And for the cell itself, just so the background colors match the panel. so it doesn't look strange. So cool, looking great. So I'm gonna search for, let's search for New York. And I'm gonna hit enter. And we get New York, New York, New York, United States. So that's looking pretty good. Let me search for JFK. And we should be able to get John F. Kennedy Airport, which is, I guess this is the address for it. And let's see what else we can get. So if you actually look at what we're printing down here, let's see what else is in here, because we did print out the place. So we are, the first time I searched for New York, we got that whole address. It also has a zip code. It has a longitude, latitude, et cetera, et cetera. And the second time I searched for JFK, and it gave us basically the address for whatever it resolved as JFK. I am going to search for Apple. Let's just search for Apple and let's see what we get. So we search for Apple and we get, I guess, Apple in Oklahoma. I guess that's a town there. And we're going to search for Beverly Hills, California, looking pretty good. The last thing we need to do is when we tap on this, we want to go ahead and we can collapse this panel here. And we want to go ahead and show or animate on the map, a pin to wherever we tapped. So it's pretty easy to actually do that. We're going to leverage a delegate. So we're going to need to create a protocol for that. So above the search controller, I'm going to create a protocol called search view controller delegate. It's going to conform to any object. And in here, we want one function, which is going to be search view controller. And then the first one is going to be a parameter for the controller, did select location with coordinates. And we want to pass back the coordinates that we got. Now we want to import CoreLocation. And the coordinates, if you recall, we made it optional because that's what it comes back as on our place object. So this is going to be a CL location coordinates 2D optional, just like that. Now on this controller, we're going to have a property which is weak. It's going to be called delegate. It's going to be the type of our protocol optional. And whenever the user goes and taps on one of these cells, we're going to say delegate, and we're just going to call that function. First parameter we pass in self, and the next one we pass in coordinates, just like that. And then finally, let's go back to our primary view controller here. And when we create this search controller, we're going to create it up above like this. We're going to say let search VC. When we create this, we want to go ahead and assign its delegate. So I'm going to say the delegate for this guy is self. Now we just want to make sure we conform to it so we don't get an error. So we'll say search view controller delegates. And then we need to implement that function. So we're going to say search view controller delegates. Let me go ahead and import CoreLocation here as well, since we're going to need it to put a pin on our map. So the first thing we want to do in here is on our map, we want to remove all annotations. So let's see, we can say remove annotations. I wonder if there's a remove all annotations. I guess there's not. So remove annotations, we're just going to say map dot annotations. So we're going to get rid of all of the pins, which are called annotations, if you haven't picked up on that yet. So we're going to remove them all first. Then we're going to create a new pin, which is a MK point annotation. And on this pin, we want to set, I believe, what's called the coordinates, which is the coordinates parameter that we are passing in. And let's see what this is complaining about. So this is saying it is optional that what we are trying to assign it to. So I'm going to first come up here. And before we do any of this stuff, we want to make sure we have valid coordinates. So we're going to say guardlet coordinates is coordinates. If we don't have them and can't unwrap them, we'll just go ahead and return. We're going to go ahead and assign them. I'm going to say map view, add annotation for our pin. And once we've added that annotation, we want to go ahead and zoom in the map to, wherever we added it. So we want to go ahead and set, I believe, on our map, a region. So we're going to say set region. This is a MK coordinate region. We're going to say animated true, so we get that nice zoom in effect. Now, you can create a coordinate region in a few different ways. I like creating it with a center and a span. So the center is going to be the coordinates that we are zooming in on, and the span is a MK coordinate span. And this essentially is how far and how broadly in the camera do you want to show, right? How much of the map real estate do you want to show? So generally 0.8 or 0.7 is sufficient. I'm going to stick with 7, but we can always adjust this, as needed. So let me go ahead and line break some of this stuff so it's a little more organized and it doesn't drive my OCD crazy. All right, let's do that. And that's it. We should be good to go. So let me go ahead and give this a run with Command R. And let's see if this works. So it should totally work in the simulator. We're gonna first search for Los. Let me search for Los Angeles. And let's see, I definitely had a typo there. So you'll see that this actually plays nicely with typos too. And when I tap on it, boom, we get a pin and we zoom into LA. And you'll notice that this panel didn't actually dismiss. So one thing we might want to do in here is we can go ahead and create this panel controller as a global, just like that. And I believe this panel has a controller function on it where we can say dismiss. So I am going to say dismiss animated true, completion nil. I will see if this actually dismisses it. I'm positive there is a way to dismiss it. I just don't recall off the top of my head. So yeah, if we go ahead and do that, it actually does dismiss it. If we actually click into this panel, I think there's a better function we can use. So let's see what we have in here. So there are a bunch of enums and such. There's a delegate. Let's see, let me search for dismiss in here. So it looks like there is so it's swizzling. That's not what we care about. So there is this function here, which is saying remove panel from parent. We don't really want to do that. We could say move, let's see, move to a floating panel state. Let's see what we can do with the move function. I think that's what we're looking for here. So I'm going to say on this panel, we want to move to a collapsed state. So I'm going to say move to, here we go. We can move to half hidden tip. I think tip should be pretty good. It's going to collapse it so it only shows a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and do animated true. And we're going to do a different location now. We are going to search for London. And I'm going to tap on this and this goes down. And boom, it zooms into London. So that's it. That's all I've got for you guys in this video. Let's do a quick recap, but essentially this is kind of the precursor to how Uber would be set up, where you would be searching for a location. Once you would pick a destination, it would calculate your prices and do all that UI stuff. But of course, in this video, we're just focusing on, actually resolving the location from a name. And the other thing I'll mention is there's a lot of services that do this for you. So it's actually showing instead of London, UK, it's showing London and Ontario, Canada, I guess. But the thing that I wanted to kind of call out is this is using Apple's first party stuff, but there is a service from Google. They have an API to do this stuff as well. So, it's not an Apple only thing by any means. And this is also kind of me playing with the idea of maybe doing a course on how to build the Uber app or, some type of navigation based app. I do have Google Maps in the works. So yeah, let me know what you guys think and if you guys are interested in that. But let's do a recap before I stop going on and we can wrap up here. So cool. We're going to start with our location manager. In here, it's pretty simple. We just have one function. Well, first we created a model for a location, which has the title and a coordinate optional. We imported CoreLocation up here. We use a geocoder to geocode the address string to something, and we get a collection of places back. We unwrap those places, and then we just compact map them into our respective model, and then we go ahead and return it to our completion. Moving along to our search controller, arguably most of our code, but we have a protocol for our delegate to relay the tapped location back to the other controller with the map. We have a delegate property for it. We have some UI elements, which is our label, our field, our table view, and then we have an array which holds the locations that drive the table. We add them all as subviews and lay them out with nice frames. We use the text field delegate to get when the user taps the enter key, and we go ahead and call that location manager function. And here we just got more table view stuff for number of rows and calling that delegate. And finally, back here in the view controller, we also don't have too much, but we started by bringing in the floating panel CocoaPod. We added it as a panel here. We laid out everything, which in this case is just the map. And we implemented the search delegate that we created. Whenever the user taps on one of those items, we'll make sure we have a coordinates. We'll go ahead and collapse the panel. We're going to remove any prior map annotation to the currently added pins. And then we're going to go ahead and add a new pin and zoom on our map here. So actually, you guys haven't seen that. So we have a map pin added already. So if I search for something else, let's say Barcelona for all my friends over in Spain, and we tap on this, you'll see that it zooms in here, but if I actually zoom out a little bit, you'll see the pin that we had added in Canada should have gone away, which in fact it has. So looking pretty good. That's all I've got for this video. It got a little longer than I anticipated, but if you liked it and haven't done so already, make sure you destroy the like button. It helps out the channel quite a bit and lets me know that you guys are finding these videos helpful and enjoying them. Comment down below if you have any questions. What do you guys want to see? Swift UI, UI Kit, you let me know. I'll make them for you. I don't want to make videos that aren't helpful for the majority of you. And of course, please hit subscribe if you haven't done that yet. I think a lot of people watch every single video all the way through, but then they don't subscribe, which beats me why they're not doing it. But hit subscribe so we can grow this channel together. So thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.